Order. Pursuant to Standing Order number 25D, I propose to extend the time for this day's sitting beyond the moment of interruption for a period of up to 30 minutes. Minister Ong Ye Kung.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you for the generosity of time. I hope I don't have to use it. I thank the members for your support for the three motions. Let me try to answer some of the questions raised, starting with Mr. Liang Yinghua that asked the reason for doing this. And I think the simplest reason is we are helping the most vulnerable countries in the world. We are talking about countries like Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Nepal, Tanzania, Yemen, where the pandemic has really ravaged lives and livelihoods. And so something like the CCLRT will help free up, through debt relief, free up much needed resources to tackle the medical, social, economic problems that they are facing. And to take a step back, and the reason is really we live in an interconnected world. And so it is in Singapore's interest to be part of this international community where we work together, where we cooperate, where there are rules, there are norms, there are best practices that hold every country into account, and that we live together in a global village. So in such a system, there will be benefits, there will be obligations. And on balance, for a small city-state like us, the benefits far outweigh the obligations and the costs. And in fact, it is existential for us to live in such a global international cooperation system. And that is why we want to do this. Is there visibility? Yes. There is all the funds are subject to the oversight of the IMF Executive Board. Singapore is represented in the board through the voting group of Southeast Asia. And so we get an update, and from time to time, the IMF will publish reports, ad hoc reports, to report on the progress of all these funds. I thank Mr. James Lim for supporting these motions as well, and for giving us this lecture about how a small country, it is much better for us to help others and make sure that if the region, if poorer countries do well, so will we. And in fact, this has, I think what he has just described is 50 over years of foreign policy. Yeah, and one of our key tenets, which is we want our neighbors to all do well. We want our region to do well. And it is because the region do well, there's global cooperation, that a small city like us, a small country like us, can do well. Which is why for so many years we contribute at various international fora, whatever we can do within our means as a small country. Today we talk about IMF, but for many years MFA had the SCP, the Singapore Cooperation Program. So we don't contribute money per se, but we run so many programs, different kinds of programs, invite government officials, in fact beyond government officials, NGOs and many representatives to come to Singapore. We provide necessary training. They take reference on what we do. We learn from each other. And I think it started in 1992. As of now, we have trained more than 130,000 officials all around the world at our expense. And today I'm in MOT, so whether it's ICAO, whether it's IMF, we have ICAO, where it's IMO, we have participated in all kinds of programs, contributing to the greater common good. We talk about the Paris Agreement, and we had a debate, long debate on the Green Plan. We talk about the Green Plan. We have a long debate on the motion on climate change being a global emergency. And we, too, contribute to the Paris Agreement. Our contribution is always commensurate with our size. It's not big, but I think it's important for us to contribute, and it's beyond money. It's about our know-how. We learn by doing, and whatever we have learned, we share with the world. And sometimes those are the lessons that are priceless. And likewise, we learn those lessons from others, and those are priceless. Mr. James Lim did talk about we should increase our monetary contribution to all these. In the IMF, it goes by your voting rights and your quota. There's a formula. We go by that formula. But of course, if you contribute more, the fiscal burden is higher, and they have to be funded by tax collections as well. But I think for us, as a small country, our stance is better not to go around to say that we have all these resources, we can give out more money. But instead, we are always struggling for relevance, we are always fighting to earn a living, and along the way, we learn many lessons, and we can share those lessons with the rest of the world. I think this is a better way for Singapore to contribute to the common good and the larger society. And Ms. Mariam Jaafar gave a couple of good suggestions on raising awareness and educating the broader public, including businesses, on the work that we do internationally and how much Singapore can help. I think these are very good suggestions. When MAS put out our press release on these IMF contributions, it was a little bit disappointing because if you look through the threads, there were quite a few criticisms saying that why is Singapore giving out money to other countries? And frankly, within MAS, when we reviewed that, we were a little bit disappointed. So I'm quite glad that today all the MPs that stood up and spoke about this supported that this contribution to the IMF grants. It shows that as a small country, we can also be big-hearted, that we can also play our role, that I think we also share our concern for the future of humanity, and we'll do our part. And what Ms. Mariam Jaafar suggested, I think is a good idea, and we'll see what we can do to raise the awareness of what we can do internationally. Mr. Speaker, back to move.
No clarifications. The question is that this Parliament, in accordance with Section 6A2 sub D of the Bretton Woods Agreements Act, Chapter 27 of the 2012 revised edition, resolves that the maximum amount of grants that the Monetary Authority of Singapore may give under the bilateral agreement or its subsequent variations to be made by the Monetary Authority of Singapore on behalf of the Government of the Republic of Singapore with the International Monetary Fund to support the Catastrophe Containment and Relief Trust is $17.6 million, approximately $12.3 million in special drawing rights. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Item 3, grant to IMF's Crisis Capacity Development Initiative.
Minister Ong.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, on behalf of Senior Minister and Minister in charge of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, I beg to move that this Parliament, in accordance with Section 6A2D of the Bretton Woods Agreements Act, Chapter 27 of the 2012 revised edition, resolves that the maximum amount of grants that the Monetary Authority of Singapore may give under the bilateral agreement or its subsequent variations to be made by the Monetary Authority of Singapore on behalf of the Government of the Republic of Singapore with the International Monetary Fund to support the COVID-19 Crisis Capacity Development Initiative is USD 2 million or approximately SDR 1.4 million. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
The question is as moved by the Minister. The question is that this Parliament, in accordance with Section 6A2 sub D of the Bretton Woods Agreements Act, Chapter 27 of the 2012 revised edition, resolves that the maximum amount of grants that the Monetary Authority of Singapore may give under the bilateral agreement or its subsequent variations to be made by the Monetary Authority of Singapore on behalf of the Government of the Republic of Singapore with the International Monetary Fund to support the Crisis Capacity Development Initiative is $2 million, approximately 1.4 million special drawing rights. As many as are of the opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Item 4, grant to IMF's Trust for Special Poverty Reduction and Growth Operations for the Heavily Indebted Poor Countries.
Minister Ong.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, looks like we can make it before 7. On behalf of Senior Minister and Minister in charge of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, I beg to move that this Parliament, in accordance with Section 6A2D of the Bretton Woods Agreements Act, Chapter 27 of the 2012 Revised Edition, resolves that the maximum amount of grants that the Monetary Authority of Singapore may give under the bilateral agreement or its subsequent variations to be made by the Monetary Authority of Singapore on behalf of the Government of the Republic of Singapore with the International Monetary Fund to support Somalia's debt relief efforts via the Trust for Special Poverty Reduction and Growth Operations for the Heavily Indebted Poor Countries is SDR 0.68 million, or approximately USD 0.97 million. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I beg to move.
The question is as moved by the Minister. The question is that this Parliament, in accordance with Section 6A2 sub D of the Bretton Woods Agreements Act, Chapter 27 of the 2012 Revised Edition, resolves that the maximum amount of grants that the Monetary Authority of Singapore may give under the bilateral agreement or its subsequent variations to be made by the Monetary Authority of Singapore on behalf of the Government of the Republic of Singapore with the International Monetary Fund to support Somalia's debt relief efforts via the Trust for Special Poverty Reduction and Growth Operations for the Heavily Indebted Poor Countries is 0.68 million special drawing rights, approximately 0.97 million United States dollars. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leader?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that Parliament do now adjourn to a date to be fixed.
The question is that the debate be now adjourned to a date to be fixed. As many as are of the opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.